To women who hoped to evade the ticking clock of time, Dr. Frederick Brandt was the most potent drug dealer in the world. And the dealer got high on his own supply. From Imperative Entertainment and the team behind Broken Hearts comes a new series that will challenge everything you know about fame, fortune, and the fear of growing old. I'm Justine Harmon, and this is The Baron of Botox.
The Tulane Executive MBA program has given me the business acumen to perfectly complement my technical expertise, creating limitless career opportunities. I'm Claude Davis, Principal Scientist and official spokesperson for Zatarain's.
Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And by Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Commander's Palace Restaurant in the Garden District in New Orleans, we're out to lunch with Peter Asciutti. Peter Asciutti is Tulane University's A.B. Freeman School of Business professor and director of the award-winning Birkenroad Reports. It's business, New Orleans style.
Hi, I'm Peter Asciutti. Welcome to Out to Lunch. According to some statisticians, there are two types of people in the world. The people who believe there are two types of people in the world and the others. We like to divide things up into opposites, like married or single, man or woman, rural or urban. But increasingly, we're coming to find out that things are, if you'll pardon the expression, not so black and white. Marriage alternatives and pansexuality are subjects for shows that probably don't wander into the realm of business, but the dichotomy of rural and urban does. We've spent generations building cities and suburbs that have pushed anything rural out to where the land is cheap, and we've thrown organic waste into plastic bags when we could have been recycling it as compost. Times are changing. Today, right here in New Orleans, whether you have a home or a business, you can recycle your organic waste and have it made into compost. And you can buy compost for your garden by the bag or by the ton. All this is thanks to Nico Craybill and Nico's business, Schmelly's Dirt Farm. Nico, welcomed Out to Lunch.
Thank you.
Very few people are doing more to blur the line between urban and rural than Grant Estrad. Grant and his wife Kate are the founders and operators of Laughing Buddha Nursery and Local Cooling Farms. Under these two banners, it's extraordinary how much Grant and Kate have going on. Here's a short list. Their nursery and meadery specializes in helping people grow plants naturally and organically. They sell everything you need for hydroponics and aquaponics. They organically raise pigs, goats, and chickens. They sell their own brand of soil called Bag O' Plenty, and they sell their organically raised meat and produce at their meadery location. You can subscribe to their co-op and get organic protein and produce delivered. That's a lot. Grant, welcomed Out to Lunch.
Great, thanks for having me.
Nico, I'll start with you. Let's begin with the basics of composting. The name of your company is Schmelly for a reason. Making industrial quantities of compost in an urban environment must have its challenges for your neighbors. So 2 questions. Where and how? How do you manufacture commercial quantities of compost, and where are you doing this?
Well, I definitely am growing to get to that point. I started out with 5 clients about 3 years ago, and it was just a few coffee shops. It took me a few hours a week.
Now, in this case, you mentioned clients as being where you're getting...
Where I'm picking up organic food waste from. And I had a conversation with them, how much could you afford for this service, being that it be reliable? Because earlier I'd pick up from places here and there, but I would do it on my schedule. That didn't really work well for a lot of restaurants. They want it picked up like trash pickup, So.
And if you pick it up, by the way, that's going to save them in garbage disposal costs?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I've heard from a lot of my clients that they can reduce, cut out one trash can and have to pay less. Some of the bigger clients, like Whole Foods, are paying less by, you putting less food into their compactor. Their truck that picks up the compactor doesn't have to come as much. But we try to balance it out as much as possible. I mean, it is a service, and to be reliable, we need to get paid. So we charge for the waste management service.
Do you have a farm of those composters that you spin around? I have one in my backyard. Do you have like a solar farm of them somewhere?
That would be a really interesting sight. No, I put it in windrows, and I mix it with wood chips. So I'm pretty heavy on the wood chips to keep the smell down, so I am on a piece of land right next to Hollygrove Market and Farm, or the former Hollygrove Market and Farm, and really my goal is to work with farms around the city, so using the land that people are farming on to make compost for that farm, and then any excess I can take for the business and sell it.
Now, Grant, one of the rules they tell you early on in courses on how to start up a business is focus on your core function. Decide precisely what problem it is that you're trying to solve, focus on that, and solely on that. You seem to have broken that rule about 20 times. You're raising animals and produce on a farm, you're selling plants in a nursery, and on top of all the other stuff you're doing, you're running a citywide food hub distribution co-op. Is the conventional entrepreneur wisdom wrong, or are these various enterprises actually all connected in some way to solving the same problem?
Well, for us, it's a very big synergy thing. I mean, one thing is going to play off of the other. So I had 15 years ago, I started up the retail garden shop, and a lot of people were asking where they can buy quality soil and compost from.
And 15 years ago, organic wasn't as hip as it is now.
It was not. We opened up about a year before Katrina, and after that, that was actually a big paradigm shift for people. I really saw people's perspective on the environment change, which is very interesting to actually kind of like see that go, from 1 year to the next change. And so it became something on the mind of everybody, really. They started talking about climate change and stuff, and even though they didn't necessarily say believe in climate change or anything, it started the conversation for a lot of people. And so 15 years ago, I did feel like I was a little early, into the market, but we held in there, and then obviously we're still here today.
And then where was the next venture? Was that the farm? Or?
It was, so we started getting a lot of calls for soil, and so like Nico, I started doing a composting business, and that turned into a very sustainable part of the business. It actually took me away from the retail shop a lot, and then I ended up partnering with another company, which I'm not partnered with anymore, but we started up a really large-scale composting facility, and I had parted ways with them, and then I was like, what's next on the list? And farming is not, farming livestock is not very far from farming plants, right? So I was like, let's go ahead and do the farm,
Yeah.
So I was like, that's going to be the next project.
And on the farm, and on his farm, he had some.
We do beef, goats, and then the pigs. Those are the main three things, and then the eggs are a big thing as well. So.
And you feed them used hops from breweries, and these are the happiest animals I've ever seen.
Yeah, they are, and so like what Nico does. I mean, we're trying to like reduce, reuse, recycle, right? That's the mantra of the recycling composting world. And so one person's trash is another person's treasure, and so we can pick up from like Brew Carré or from Second Line Brewing. They need to find a place to throw it away, but it still has a very high value of it before you would compost it. So it's still a high quality animal feed. So we can incorporate that into our feeding program as well.
I take it this farm isn't on Veterans in Metairie. It's
we went to the North Shore and kind of kept going. So we're just into Washington Parish and South Bogalusa.
Nico, what's your one thing that's stopping you from getting bigger? Because you have a lot of ideas. And what is it? Is it funding?
Funding is huge in order to build and buy equipment. In order to scale up. I mean, like one piece of equipment that I don't have is a way to screen the material when it's finished composting and get sort of the chunky bits of wood and other things that aren't finished composting, and then the composted material that becomes what they call finished compost that you would put in your garden, you could bag that and sell it. And
we've been talking up until now about where you're gathering these, what you need for compost. Where do you sell it?
Right now, I give away most of it to the farms that I work with. So it's a sort of trade. Like Hollygrove gets all the growers on site get their compost for free, and I'm not paying rent there. I work with a couple other farms to compost on site, and they get compost for free. But then it's just sort of word of mouth. And part of that is that my phone, I get a lot of phone messages. I gotta go back home and check all those messages, and so the time it takes to run, all components of the business take a while. So I haven't done any advertising, and I just kind of get calls here and there. I heard you got compost, and it's been at that scale for a while until I can really open the floodgates, which And part of that is sort of my own personality and philosophy of growing a business very slowly and in a small way to address the needs. And this is my first business ever, so I come from really a nonprofit background and a teaching background. So
You know what I was impressed with is part of your goal here is employment for young people.
Yeah. So I used to work for New Orleans Food and Farm Network, and we worked with volunteers, we worked with kids, and we would build backyard gardens to teach people how to grow or to help people who already knew how to grow. And I left that, and we had this idea of, well, if there was a composting company in town, that would definitely provide a lot of these green jobs that everyone talks about. And there's also a lot of great training programs, leadership programs, Edible Schoolyard and GrowDat, two of them. And so we wanted to try to make that bridge. And so when I was at Food and Farm, we looked at the idea of a composting company. And when I left Food and Farm Network, grant money dried out, lost my job, started looking into that business. And so picked up where other people, like there was a woman at Holly Grove who used to compost and picked up from coffee shops. And so I started picking up her clients and took off and just grew the business from there.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Peter Raschuti. I'm talking with Nico Craybill from the compost company Schmelly's Dirt Farm and Grant Estrad from Laughing Buddha Nursery and Local Cooling Farm. We'll be right back after this very brief break.
To women who hoped to evade the ticking clock of time, Dr. Frederick Brandt was the most potent drug dealer in the world. And the dealer got high on his own supply. From Imperative Entertainment and the team behind Broken Hearts comes a new series that will challenge everything you know about fame, fortune, and the fear of growing old. I'm Justine Harmon, and this is The Baron of Botox.
Celebrate this sizzling Sprint week with amazing savings at your local Sprint store. Now through January 26th, switch to Sprint and get $100 via prepaid MasterCard. That's right, you'll get $100 when you switch. There's never been a better time to switch. Stop by your local Sprint store during sizzling Sprint week, now through Sunday, January 26th to learn more. Requires port, online registration, and 60 days of service on a new line before card ships. Card terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Member FDIC. Restrictions apply.
Hey, I'm Josh. I just scored such an amazing deal at Sprint. A brand new iPad Gen 7 completely on them. All I had to do was add unlimited data for $25 per month. Can you believe it? A new iPad on Sprint. I'm so stoked to watch all my favorite shows on it. Visit your local Sprint store now through January 26th to learn more.
iPad 7 Gen 32 gigabytes, $0 per month after 1917 monthly credit for 24 months credit. Applied in the two bills. Requires new line of cancel early. Remaining balance due. Tax due at sale. Plan X with taxes, fees, and roaming. Speed maximums. Use rules and restrictions apply.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Peter Raschuti. I'm talking with Nico Craybill from the compost company Schmelly's Dirt Farm and Grant Estrad from Laughing Buddha Nursery and Local Cooling Farm. And Grant, you, as a part of your business, I guess maybe it's one of the newer parts, but this subscription box really interested me. Before you explain it, when I think of that, I usually think of like a set. The company decides what's going to be in it and everybody gets the same box, but you're not doing that either.
We're not. It's fairly unique, and we didn't come up with this on our own. We didn't recreate the wheel. One of our mentor farms, who's out of state, they've been doing this for years, so we really got to benefit from a lot of their experience. And we're not only selling our product, but we've teamed up with other farms to help them sell their product, because one of the biggest challenges is logistics. So if you got one farmer in Mississippi and he wants to bring a bunch of produce down, it's just hard to do the traveling, and they have to have an air-conditioned box and all that, and so on and so forth. So we can, based upon when they're in town, we can get all that stuff in, we can aggregate it, and put it on an availability list, and we'll send it out. And so we have these food hubs that are populated in different neighborhoods. So like, say, for example, Lakeview.
Okay.
We've got a Lakeview email list, and if somebody wants on it, we just put them on the email list. We'll shoot them an email. Hey guys, this is what's available this week. The pick is on Thursday between 4 and 7, and it's everything that's available that week.
So
and
they decide what goes
they
in the
decide,
box.
and it's a la carte. So they can get a dozen eggs, or they can get a dozen eggs and some ground pork or some produce or whatever.
And then do you bring it all to a central location, or
we do. So so I'll keep using an example of Lakeview. So we'll get all the Lakeview orders. We'll put everybody's order in a bag, put their name on it. We'll throw it in a little pickup truck, and Kate takes off with it, and then people come, set time to say, hey, I'm here to pick up my order, and we grab that bag, and we just ring the sale right then and there. So it's really nice, and it's good because we know that everything that we're taking out of the freezer or taking out of the fridge is being sold. So there's really no risk of being like, oh, this product sat out, and so now it thawed out. What do we do now? So it's a very efficient process in how we're doing it.
And both of you are really trying to, more of a big picture, trying to change the way we eat, right? It's, against that kind of standard mega corporation food.
To a certain extent, but to play off what Nico said, is just creating jobs. There's a lot of talk about, manufacturing jobs and local economy and stuff like that. Well, this is a sector that's got this huge potential. Because we all eat 3 times a day, and it is manufacturing work, so you've got to have that skill set. But I think Louisiana, I think the stat is that we import 95% of our food. And so if there are more people doing composting, that dovetail with the composting and the waste industry, but then you can use those resources to grow the food to feed the people, and then you're creating jobs and all kinds of stuff, and you're lowering costs for a lot of people as well. So it really is a fantastic thing.
I think if you guys get any bigger, it's a pretty great model.
It is.
Really is.
It is.
And it seems like it could grow. Obviously we talked about restrictions of maybe funding and things like that, but it's kind of limitless, right?
I think so too, to the point to where, Kate and I talk about this all the time. We have to actually set caps on ourselves. So we have 15 acres in Bogalusa. Well, if we're going to be doing, sustainable regenerative agriculture, we can only have so many animals on that given acreage. We rotate everybody around and all that kind of stuff, but, we set caps, okay, we can do this many pigs every year, and then that's it. But the market says we can do, 20 times that. And so, another thing that I appreciate about Nico is the education aspect is that, we're not doing, I'm more of an open source guy. So if I can convince other people to do their own farm, that's cool. And I don't have to worry about that competition because the market is just so big. So I think we just, instead of any individual farm getting huge, we just need a whole network of a whole bunch of farms.
And Nico, you're in kind of the same boat. I'd read somewhere where sometimes you'll get like a hotel or something that wants to have you pick up 6 days a week, and you won't take those projects that are going to, are just going to smother you.
Yeah, and especially because that meeting with that hotel, probably the second largest hotel in the city, they were like, you seem to not have the transportation logistics. And I was like, I definitely don't. But I'm working towards that direction. But I've definitely, along the last 3 years, I've asked myself, how much do I want to grow? And these are really important questions for me. Realizing that composting is not just an agricultural job, it's a transportation job, and not wanting to create a trucking industry that's driving stuff way out of town, which a lot of models in other cities do, and it's probably the best way that most big cities do it, in New York, San Francisco, and other places. They're driving it hundreds of miles outside. But I'm really wanting to try to look on what can we do in the city, and how can we do that thing where we're supporting each other, farms and all the different agriculture aspects.
Nico, could you work with a traditional garbage company? Is that not what you need?
Well,
or?
I had a traditional garbage company call me, a big national garbage company that works in town. They called me, and I thought they were scoping me out to see what I was doing or wanting to compete, and so I had a lot of questions for them, but they immediately got to my site and they said that they forgot their nose clips, that they were and
That's how we get rid of people.
They were great. They were really fun, and they actually just wanted to know who was doing this, because they get calls about people who want their compost picked up and they didn't know who to refer it to. So and I've been working, that's Republic Services, and I've been connecting with them over different times. They pick up the compostable coffee chaff from Folgers. Folgers wants to be zero waste by 2020, and they take it out of town somewhere. I don't know to who. I think they do like a fertilizer or something. And but they wanted to know if I wanted some of that coffee chaff, and I said, yeah, definitely, I can use that in my process.
So later on, be Schmelly's Farm, a division of waste management. There's something.
It could be.
Nico and Grant, this is the part of the show we call another great idea. Maybe you've got a friend like this, someone who's always got a great idea for you. They tell you about this job you should apply for, or that guy you should have a cup of coffee with, or a great investment opportunity you should jump on. Now, you can take advice like this and it turns out to be a disaster. You can dismiss this advice and miss out on something that may have turned out really great, or you can take your friend's advice and it turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. Do you have an example in your life or career of a friend who had a great idea for you? Did you take their advice, and how did it turn out, Grant?
Well, since we're on the theme of composting, I
don't know if Commanders wants us to discuss this at all.
Right. Well, when I first opened up the store, I ran into this lady who did like networking kind of a deal, and she's like, let's invite all my friends over, and if they buy anything, she wanted a cut of the sale kind of a deal, right? So you buy the food and the booze and get them over here. And I remember being so mad because I realized it was just, they were just there for the free, food and booze kind of a thing, right? So, but I had one conversation with this guy, and he goes, one industry that fascinates me is the composting industry. And I go, oh, you need all kinds of equipment, you need all kinds of space to do it. And he goes, no, you just need to start and make a little pile. And he made this little hand gesture of a pile. And he goes, you make that and you sell half of it and you just like keep going, and repeat kind of a thing. And I really thought a lot about that after that. And that was something that I did. And it ended up working out very much. So that was, even though I was mad because I didn't make any sales or anything like that, but that was a great piece of advice. And I definitely went with it, and it's proven to benefit me and other businesses.
Now, Nico, what about yourself?
The first thing that came to mind was a podcast I listened to about edible bugs. And I haven't taken this advice yet, but maybe I'm looking towards it.
I like it already.
No one steal my idea here.
Yeah.
But apparently, to farm insects, their number one food source is food scraps. So I'm already dealing in that business, so I might be able to make that work out. But the one piece of advice that someone did give me a long time ago was my senior year of high school. My photo teacher, who was actually a painter, he wasn't very good at computers at all, and the school gave him a whole classroom full of computers, and he didn't know how to use them, and they wanted him to teach the class Photoshop. And I had just taken a class with my dad about Photoshop, and so I co-taught the class with my teacher that senior year. And at the end of the class, he said, if you ever want to teach, you should call me up after college, and maybe I can get you a job here because you were a great teacher. I had never thought of myself as potentially being a teacher. And then I ended up going to photo school for a number of years, and when I got out of school, applying for jobs, I started applying for tutoring jobs at schools, and so I ended up becoming a teacher in Chicago for 2 years, and that's led me to really see the world in a different way, that we all have something to teach, and that really sharing knowledge is the primary thing.
And you have an educational component to what you're doing now.
Exactly. That's all I really want to do is to help share.
The drift away from urban dwellers getting our hands dirty started a long time ago, probably around the time of the Industrial Revolution in 1800. It would take an Armageddon-like catastrophe to turn us all back into farmers, but there's definitely some middle ground between urban and rural that gives us the best of both worlds. The internet has helped take the benefits of city dwelling to people living in the country, and people like you, Nico and Grant, are bringing the benefits of rural life into the city. Thank you both for what you're doing and taking the time to join me today on Out to Lunch.
Yep, thank you for having us.
My guests on Out to Lunch today have been Nico Craybill, operator and owner of Schmelly's Dirt Farm, and Grant Estrad, the operator and owner of Laughing Buddha Nursery and Local Cooling Farms. You can find out more about Nico's compost and Grant's organic ventures by following the links on our website. It's neworleans.com. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle, and our researcher is Maggie Mendel. You can listen to this show or to past episodes of Out to Lunch wherever you get podcasts and at itsneworleans.com. If you want to know what we look like, you can find photos from this show on itsneworleans.com and It's New Orleans Facebook page. The photos were taken today by Jill LaFleur. You can find more of Jill's photos at lafleurphoto.com. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com and WWNO 89.9 FM. I'm Peter Raschuti. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Commander's Palace for more business, New Orleans style, on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch is recorded live over lunch at Commander's Palace in New Orleans. Commander's Palace serves lunch Monday to Friday, jazz brunch on Saturday and Sunday with live music, and dinner 7 nights a week. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And by Basics Swim and Gym and Basics Underneath Fine Lingerie, the It's New Orleans Happy Hour podcast. And by Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.